Previously on The Outsider.
Claude Bolton, where is he now?
He said he wanted to go hang with his brother in Tennessee, a town called Cecil.
This El Coco, what does it want?
It wants to survive at all costs.
We have an APB for John Jack Hoskins. Suspect is considered armed and dangerous.
How have you been feeling then?
Like someone's been trying to get inside your head?
In my head, in the mirror, looking right back at me.
This Coco is turning into Claude as we speak, so hopefully it'll expose itself to the world. Yeah, my brother! He's here. It's here.
Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of Talking the Outsider. I am one of your hosts, Kinte, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and I am so happy to be here with you tonight. This is going to be a great episode. I'm very excited to be here with you, and I am joined by my wonderful, super talented co-host, the only Jen.
Hey, so I always feel like I should say all the way live from Hawaii. So all the way live from Hawaii. It's Jen.
That's right.
And I couldn't agree with you more. This episode blew my mind.
Now, I'm going to say this before we continue on. This is the penultimate episode 9 of The Outsider. This is like one of the first shows that we've done. Well, I don't want to say the first show, but one of the shows in recent times that we've covered where I'm going to totally miss this show. Like, when it's over, I'm going to miss it. I love talking about it. I love watching it. I really enjoyed this ride of this program. So this is going to be bittersweet next week's finale.
Yeah. Now,
for those who may be the first time they're listening to our podcast, me and Jen, we've both read the book written by Stephen King. We did a book review. That was the first podcast that we did. We talked about the whole book. We had a spoiler section. We gave an overall opinion of the book, and then we had a spoiler section where we went into great detail about how the book ends and how it wraps up. We purposely, during the course of this show, we don't talk too much about spoilers, or we have like a section. So you can listen to this program and it won't really ruin it unless you get to our spoiler part, right?
Right.
So at the end of this episode, I want to do another spoiler part as it relates to the book, because I feel like that's very important for those who've read the book, who understand where we're going with this as well. So with that being said, I want to first start off by, okay, so we're both fans of the novel, right?
Absolutely.
And when this episode began, it was evident that it was a flashback, right?
If you hadn't read the book, I don't think you would understand.
Wait. It was evident because the way that they were dressed, and it didn't seem like it was really.
Nobody with me knew that it was flashback. Not one person.
Well, I knew it was a flashback, right? I'll be honest with you. At first, I didn't relate it to the novel, and then it hit me like a ton. And it was so funny because I was watching with someone who didn't read the book, and I was like, "This is from the book. This is from the book. This is the story that Claude Bolton's mom told in the novel." Like when I picked up on what was going on, I was all excited. I was like a kid. I was like, yo, because okay, so this is not spoiler. I don't think this is going to be spoiler territory because this is from the episode. So in the novel, we've said this before, that Claude Bolton's brother is not a character in the novel. They basically substitute his mother for the brother.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, the things that the mother did, the brother does, but not quite in the same way, but very similar, right?
Yeah. Not as annoying either.
Not as annoying, right? So in this episode, we had, the way that they bridge the story of the cave-in. And let's first start off with the cave-in, and then we'll get into all of the other stuff, because I think this is a good point to start off, and then we'll get into present day, and then we'll talk about how it affects present day. But so the way that the cave-in is told in the story is the mother basically tells the whole story,
right,
of the cave-in. The way that they do it in the TV show is brilliant. It starts off with this flashback, and it's intercut through the episode, and then it meets together, and then the brother tells the big part, and they show through flashback as well. That is, right. I mean, obviously you can't do that in a book, really. So, but you can take advantage of that in a television show. So, because I'll be honest with you, the part of the cave-in in the novel just drones on for a long time, and I think it's cool, but it loses some of its impact because of that. Whereas the way they do it in this on the TV show is way better. Go ahead.
He's very thorough. Stephen King is very thorough about explaining to us what happened in the cave-in, and I think in some ways it is to sort of prepare us for the fact that that this was sort of a perfect storm, a perfect way to leave things. How can I say this? Like, it was just sort of, this is Stephen King's kind of almost signature way of helping us to understand that the things that were happened both because the characters made them happen, but also because the environment played a huge role in it. I mean, I've seen this happen in a ton of Stephen King stories, going all the way back to Salem's Lot, where the physical location means a lot, and Stephen King takes great pains to explain them.
I get it, and I understand it. It's still,
it does drone. You're right.
Goes on. The way that they're able to do it because of a TV show, and the way that they did it was brilliant.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I thought, as someone who read the book, I don't know, at what point did you realize it was that storyline?
Well, so the moment that, and I hate to say that it was this far in, but the moment that the dad went to the souvenir shop to ask if she had seen them, that's when I realized what was going on.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was really cool how they did it.
It was brilliant. I mean, it really was brilliant.
And also, it was very good in explaining why El Cuco chooses that as his hiding place.
Right.
I mean, they really established it earlier with the the barn near the graveyard and whatnot, but all of that coming together is so good because it makes perfect sense why he's where he's at. If you put everything together from what you've already seen, plus with this, and it's really brilliant. It's very brilliant how it all plays out. So I thought, that was a really good scene, and I love the brother. The brother is really good.
The thing that I think that these scenes did is it begins to stitch together the tapestry that we've been weaving all along, but maybe haven't seen the bigger picture of. And with the vignettes that we saw in this episode, we're able to start completing that picture. which again is actually really good. I mean, I'm really glad that they took their time and waited to tell that whole part of the story because it is really important.
Very important and it sets up the finale really well too. So kudos once again. So okay, let's go to the present day. And where we left off, they showed the videotape of fake Claude Bolton trying to abduct the kid. So we were still there. And I thought that it was really good to see Detective Anderson really coming to an understanding of, we always talk about belief, how important belief is, and how he straightens up Howie about the whole, you gotta, if you're gonna be here, you gotta believe in whatnot.
Right. Exactly what he was told on the way down.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool. And
because Holly wasn't having any of that either.
There's a scene where Detective Anderson's talking to his wife, and he tells, "Oh, it's here." He says, "As a matter of fact, it's here." And
yeah.
She's like, "What?" She almost runs over somebody. Remember?
Yep. And, that was epic. That was actually really epic.
And I forgot. I was watching a YouTube review of this episode, and someone said something interesting, and so I want to make sure, like, I want to give credit where it's due. I'm not stealing this person's thought, but he said something about the fact that Detective Anderson was smoking in the scene, and almost almost as if he didn't expect to come back. So it's like, well, I'm not going to die via lung cancer, so what the hell, right?
Well, right, and they actually established this early on with his wife asking him, "Are you smoking again?" Right.
And of course, she doesn't want him to confront El Cuco at all, but he has to do what he has to do, know. And he kind of lies a little bit. We're just going to contain it, I don't think he ever thought that was what really was going to go down. What do you think?
No, I don't either. Yeah. I don't think he expected that. I don't. Well, maybe I think it's a little bit difficult to judge because it is very hard for me to imagine that he understood in his capacity that he understands what El Cuco is, what a confrontation would even look like.
Right.
Right.
So, but I think he had more of an understanding that it was going to be more than that, but he was trying to make her feel comfortable.
Right.
So let's get to the interrogation. I thought it was a great scene with the grandfather and the grandson.
Oh yeah.
And I love that scene where he explains. He's like, Savlo asks him, "Is there anything else now that you had time to sit with it?" And he said, his eyes look sunken in, but I thought it was just because he was wearing that mask. But when the Foxhead mask came off, it still looked like he was wearing a mask. I thought that was
right.
I thought that was a good scene because it it spoke to what who he is and what it is going on, and he does wear a mask of the people that he is embodying. So I thought that was good.
It's funny how the characters that were at the festival, at the rock festival or the cave festival, it's funny how when they recount what they saw, and again we go with this idea of what is belief, that they specifically all experience something that makes sense to them, as opposed to saying it was clearly something, well outside the scope of what I know. And no, they just explained it so that it made sense to them. I actually thought that was actually really good. I liked it a lot.
Do you like fried chicken?
I love fried chicken.
You know why I'm bringing this up?
Oh, absolutely.
200 miles is, I love fried chicken, but 200 miles is a long ride to go for some fried chicken. But I have to admit, the fried chicken in this episode did look pretty good.
It
So,
definitely looked good.
so I can understand at least it looked great on camera. So, it looked great on camera. So, there it is right there.
Their reaction to it was actually also really kind of awesome.
Yeah. So, and this is similar to something that happens in the book too, where he's sent away so that they can kind of formulate their plan.
Right.
And, I don't remember if it was fried chicken, but it was some kind of food place, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a food place.
Right. So, and I really, I've talked about it. I love the Howard Solomon character, played by Bill Camp. And I love the dialogue that that he and Bolton had. I want to say Ramsey Bolton, and that's another HBO show. But I love when he's like, "You don't remember me," and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "From court." He said, I represented you. And he's like, yeah. He said, yeah, I was in the bar fight. And then he goes, did you win? And he said, in court? He's like, no, the bar fight. He's like, if I lost the bar fight, I wouldn't have needed you in court. I thought that was pretty funny scene. And
that's so him too.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. And but then I love when he says that me not remember you is pretty good because you must not have been that bad of a person that
right.
So but I really believe though that scene, obviously besides just getting him away from the group, it really humanizes Bolton to a more extent, and like it really kind of speaks to like, yeah, he's had problems in his life. He's it's because he's always being referenced as an ex-con and a former drug addict,
right,
and all of that stuff. But one thing I loved by that scene, that scene really does is say that, yeah, he's been in trouble. He's really saying that he weren't that bad of a guy. Like he deserves to, like, okay, Terry Maitland, for example, was a great guy, obviously didn't deserve what happened to him, right?
Right.
And you can make an argument that Claude Bolton has lived on the rough side of the mountain. Maybe, this is what Terry Maitland probably deserved, this intervention more than Claude, right?
Right.
But one thing I love about this is that he's not a perfect person. He's not a person like Terry Maitland, who, it's like, but then they're working so hard to make sure that he doesn't get the injustice. And I feel like this scene is really good because it really speaks to, yeah, he's had problems, he's been in trouble, but he was never really that bad of a person.
Well, the way that I look at this, I think from all of them is, excuse me. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. They failed Terry Maitland. They failed him on every fundamental level that basically there was. And this is their chance at redemption. So and I'm not saying that, if Claude Bolton was a terrible person, that maybe they wouldn't be going all out. I don't know. But yes, he is, a good person who's made some mistakes and done some things that maybe he shouldn't have, but definitely doesn't deserve this. But more than that, I think it's our team that really feel like this is justice for Terry, because for them, the everything that went wrong that they couldn't figure out, they now have open access to, so there's no excuse to allow it to happen again.
Right. Yeah. And
it's kind of like it's their redemption.
Right. Because on his side, on the prosecution side, they all want to atone for what happened. So I want to get back to the group, the Scooby-Doo gang over here, as they figure out how they're going to actually, at this point, they're looking for the whereabouts of where possible El Cuco could be at, and then this is when we have the rest of the story filled in by Claude Bolton's brother. I really feel like that this group, we talked about it because that's a lot of people that came out to try to make this.
It is.
So, and I really feel like this team coming together, trying to make a right out of a wrong. I really feel like that this is kind of the crux of what this story is all about. It's about, like you said, belief. It's about there's evil in this world, and that the thing that can overcome it is people who believe in not only the fact that it's existence, but in each other, And I really think that I love how this at the end of this story, how everybody comes together like that. Because, through the whole story, they're kind of off on their own and stuff. And so, I really feel like this is what makes this very strong. And to be honest with you, I was concerned early on about how the last part of this series was going to go. And I'm so glad that it's living up to the weight of what they started.
Yeah, and I'll just add something. I think sort of small in here, but something that overall I've noticed that continues to be a really strong suit. This episode, like other episodes, it's all about finding. It's about finding the smaller moments in a bigger narrative. And so, you set out to tell a story like this, and it's a pretty big story, and it is very compelling, but it is so much less about world building and the supernatural as it sort of just is. We have to believe. That's basically what we are told to do. We have to believe. Now, we as the readers or as the watchers in the series as it goes, we know that there's something else going on. But from a character perspective, we as the watchers of all of this are really learning about everything that we need to learn about in these really small, almost bite-sized pieces. And what that does in terms of the overall story is it gives it this very protracted sense of, wow, it's taking a long time to get to here. And, one of my friends who I suggested watch the show was so frustrated by the third episode that they were like, I don't know how you watch this. I mean, I want things to happen and it doesn't feel like they're happening and I don't understand why they're not happening. But to me, that's sort of the brilliance of this narrative. It is so protracted, so long in its game that it feels sticky. It feels like a really long period of almost discovery. Now, the reason that I think that this is important is because this episode in particular was all about farming out piecemeal these little tiny events that don't seem to necessarily hook up with each other, but they are all incredibly important to our overall understanding of both how the supernatural world is working right now, how the characters are responding to it. The fact that Claude's brother was willing to tell him, give him the quote unquote heads up of a lifetime is a big piece, because he just told the outsider, El Cuco, what was going on. He sprang it all out there. That is sort of like, that's necessary. We need to understand that. But what happens in the series that is so excellent is it takes forever to get there. It takes forever for us to understand that this is what is really happening. And it's not just that the characters say it's happening, we see it happening, right? There's something so incredibly strong about telling a story that is chopped up into so many small pieces where the characters have to come together with their own understandings of things in order for us to make sense of what's happening supernaturally.
Yeah. I honestly believe that this is I hope it gets Emmy consideration. It definitely deserves it.
Oh, yes, this is so worthy. Also, just, I mean, as a side note, look, normally I am not one for discordant music, right? Because it is, as much as I like it at certain points, The Walking Dead does it every now and then too. There is a place for discord in terms of music, or discordant music overall. But The Outsider makes this work on a level that is just, oh my gosh, it's like we have this soundtrack underneath everything that is so dread. There's so and maybe dread is too strong of a word. There's so much angst underneath it that it's always sort of feeling like, oh, there's something happening, or because it's not shock value. The soundtrack is never, super jump scary or anything like that. It's always just this resonant discord underneath the surface. And that's very much what's happening here. Under the surface is this dysfunction that it's at work, but it's hard to identify. So yeah, that's another, I just absolutely love the sound work in this.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. And the little sounds, that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's really good. So let me see if I still got it. Yep, I still got it queued up. Okay, let's talk about this guy real quick. Ralph Anderson.
Okay.
Ralph is not your typical hero in these kind of stories. At times he has those hero moments, right? When he roughs people up and whatnot. But he's definitely a very different kind of main protagonist in this story. And talking about a arc, right, of a character, he's definitely taken an arc,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And there's times where you feel like you kind of know the character, and there's other times where you feel like you're still learning who this character is. But I remember very early on, one of our listeners said, I think this is like maybe episode 3. She was in the chat room and she said, I hate Ryan Anderson's character.
Oh, wow.
And which I thought, and I think a lot of times it's because like these characters, it's like we see that there's something supernatural going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of go, well, like Scully in the X-Files. It's like,
right,
really, right. Like, you don't realize, you're not going to just give in to the fact that there's extraterrestrials or whatnot. And, that's not really how the world works, right? You got to give Ryan's character credit because, yes, there's a lot of information that can say that it's possible. It's a possibility that this is going on. But really, there's nothing that's really happened that's 100% where he has to take this leap. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, there's some things that, you can still kind of go, well, maybe it's this or that. So, my question to you is, what do you feel about his character? Is he a character that you enjoy? Do you like his arc? Do you like Ben Mendelsohn's performance as him? To be honest with you, I wouldn't have seen him from reading the book as Ben Mendelsohn, but I'll get into what I feel like about him actually playing him.
Okay. So from the very beginning, I actually, although you're right, I didn't imagine that this is the character that would end up, or the actor that would end up being Ralph. But I am going to say that from the moment that I heard Ralph speaking, it absolutely was Ralph in my head, 100%. And there are subtle nuances that the character picks up, which I don't know if they were director led or whether he read the book, but it definitely felt very much like that was a Ralph thing to do. And they were little things. They were not, nothing screaming or anything like that, just really small things. That feels like really good character work. In terms of his arc, this is one of the most interesting arcs, I think, that happens in the book. And I mean, for obvious reasons, other than what we get to see with maybe, well, no, actually, I'm going to say that it is actually, because Holly's arc is fairly static. I mean, it starts out at one point, but it seems to end on the same point almost. And Ralph is the one who undergoes the most unbelievable transformation from a no, this isn't happening, to a absolutely, how can I get rid of it? And the leap in between there is so metamorphic that it really takes a special person to convince us that you are absolutely the person who just wants to do, cop stuff to, oh, this is real, and we need to embrace the fact that there is something supernatural happening here so that it doesn't happen to anybody else. I was wrong. Despite the fact that all the evidence that I have leads me in a different direction, I am taking this leap of faith. And what a leap of faith it really is for him. I know all the things that come together to push him in that direction, but ultimately I think the over the edge top for Ralph is the fact that there is nothing left. The chest is empty. There is nothing in his cop toolbox that will give him any more. He just has reached the bottom. And where do you go from the bottom? That's oftentimes when people say that they find God. It's also the time when people find that, they get to the point where their faith has been restored because they are at the bottom. There's no place to go but climb up. I mean, like, there's a metaphor going on here, which really feels very true and really poignant.
I 100% agree with you. Like I said, I enjoy his character. I don't think he sucks, and I think Ben Mendelsohn is doing a great job. And kudos. And what's funny is because I started watching the show as I was reading the book, and as I was reading the book, he morphs into Ben Mendelsohn in my head. And so like I totally saw, I started seeing it that way. So that was pretty cool. So, all right, let's get to the end of the episode. And if you are a fan of the book, you definitely, this is something that is very similar, but slightly different. We have let me kind of go back a little bit. My bad.
I thought it was great how they actually got everybody to the cave.
Right.
Because clearly not everybody was going to the cave to start. So getting everybody to the cave was actually really brilliant.
I have to say, Jack Hoskins, this guy is killing it.
He is.
Mark Menchaca is how you say his name.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. Mark Menchaca. I don't remember seeing this actor before, but he is so good as this character. He's very good, and he's so tortured, and so he's sitting there waiting for them. He is an expert marksman.
He's a sniper.
He's a sniper. He's I know in the book he's referred to as he likes the character from American Sniper.
Yeah.
So there's a point to it. And they do a good job of letting you know early on till now that so that when this part happens, you understand that he has this embodiment of, this is something that's not out of touch, with what's going to happen. So, and I love this shot, by the way. I'm about to pull it up on the screen if you're listening to it on audio. And they do this a lot of great shot, by the way, if you're watching the video. So he's waiting for everybody to get there, and then he starts to get ready, and he has everybody in the scope, and
okay, so first, let's set this.
Hold on 1 second. I want to show this real quick. Okay, he got everybody. He's getting people in there. Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, as we set this exact scene up, first of all, we see the snake coming up. But secondly, if you listen to the soundtrack, that's what you hear. You hear the rattle of the snake.
I was gonna save that for the spoiler part, but okay.
I'm just saying that obviously there's something to that. But the soundtrack, the way that they have maybe not the soundtrack, but the sound underneath it is again, there is nothing, I swear there is nothing scarier. I don't know if everybody knows what rattlesnakes do, but they're frightening. So when you hear one, if you know what they are, it's scary. It's very scary. That to me added just another layer of, why that whole sequence was so frightening.
Yeah. And poor Alec Paley, he gets it right in the head.
Oh man, that was sad.
Yeah, and remember, he didn't want to be there. He felt the copper in his mouth.
Yeah.
And but he went there, and he probably should have went with his early mind, and he got it. So that's unfortunate. Okay, so this is what I want to do. I want to have we're going to do our spoiler section. And when we say our spoiler section, we don't know what's going to happen on the TV show. We only know we've read the book, so we're going to talk about how it relates to what's in the book, and we're only going to focus on what we've seen so far in this episode and a little bit about what's coming up forward. So if you don't want to hear this at all, this is probably a good place for you to end at. So you've been warned. Okay, so spoiler part. Okay, you mentioned the snake. I love how they introduced the snake in here versus the book, because it just seemed like the snake just came out of nowhere. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and just,
yeah.
I know that it's different because it's a novel, so it's a little harder to establish that. But the way that they showed it visually, and, because we're going to just, in the novel, he's repeatedly bitten by a rattlesnake.
Right.
And it's a big part of what goes on going forward. And when I saw when I saw the snake in the preview, I was like, oh, okay, they're going to do that on the TV show, right? And I like the way that they kind of just showed the snake, so that.
Well, the way that they show it in the episode, it almost doesn't. You almost can't tell where the snake might be. Is the snake by Ralph? Is the snake by Claude? Is the snake by Jack? Where's the snake? We don't know. It's disembodied.
Right. Do you think the snake is something otherworldly or just a snake?
That's a good question. I think that what makes El Cuco successful is capitalizing on existing structures that cause pain. And so it lends me to believe that the snake is just a snake.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I believe that as well. In the novel, El Cuco was constantly talking to Jack Hoskins, which they're not doing in this. where he's like, I'll take the cancer away and the snake bites, like
Yeah.
so you don't really have that in here. One thing I love that they set up too, this is another spoiler alert, is in this scene right here, Holly says, that gun that you have won't help you in the cave, and she's basically talking about, that if you shoot the gun off, that possibly it would be a cave in.
Right.
And then he says, "Oh, us cowboys make us feel better." So what they're doing is setting up that, because that's the thing in the final part of the confrontation, is that a sound too loud or a gunshot or whatnot could possibly make the cave come in. That was pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's actually really integral to what happens after. So that is really important.
Yeah. So, okay, in the novel, both Alec Pelly and Howie is murdered by Jack Hoskins, and Sablo is injured. Do you think that we're going to get more carnage? Because yeah,
I think the whole point, and I actually expressed to somebody else how powerful this was in the moment. The gunshots in the dark, where we have zero understanding of what's happening. We have no visual cues about what might be going on, and all we hear are gunshots. And there's 6 of them, and they take forever to go. I mean, like it to me, it felt like time stood still when that was happening. And it was powerful, absolutely powerful. So yes, I think we have not seen the last death just from Jack and his gun. But I also think that they may change stuff up from the way that it was in the book. I don't know. There's little cues that make me think that maybe they will.
Yeah, hopefully Andy gets it. I'm not a big Andy fan. But as we can see from the next on, that Claude, the Bolton brothers get there, and Howie. So stay tuned to see what happens there. So is there any last things you want to talk about before we?
The only thing that I feel like maybe we didn't touch on at all is sort of how Holly is reacting to all of this. Because in this episode, it really feels like Holly has sort of resigned herself almost to maybe being a scapegoat. I don't know. Something felt really different about her character this episode.
Really?
Yeah. Like she thinks that maybe she is going to end up kind of being like sacrificial, or I don't know, something just felt really different about the way that she was approaching this. And different, like clearly her affect was different. I'm not saying that her choices made me think that. I'm saying like this was a clear choice by the actor to do something a little bit different. And I could really feel it.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. I might have to go back and I've seen this episode twice, so.
Oh, nice.
But that's not a normal thing I do.
It is such a good episode. I mean, it really just carries to me, this episode is what I was hoping for all along. I was really hoping that this is what we would get. And it didn't disappoint at all.
Not at all.
So I have high expectations for next week.
Me too.
Also, just as a quick FYI, although I don't know what this means because who knows, it's HBO. They said season finale to The Outsider, not series finale. So
I caught that.
Yeah, maybe there's something interesting to that. I don't know.
I caught that. It said season finale.
Mm-hmm.
So
Stay tuned. There could be something interesting happening there.
I see. We're on the same page there. I caught that and I was like,
I feel like it's okay to cross your fingers and see what happens.
Let me look it up while we're on here. Outsider season 2. Let's see if they have anything.
Well, they wouldn't.
Oh, check this out. I didn't realize this. See, I should be checking it out. It says HBO's. Oh, really? Forbes. It says HBO's Outsider will probably get a season 2.
Ooh.
Even if it finishes out Stephen King's book.
Ooh.
But that was written a while ago. And then on Joe Blow, here I'll pull it up for you guys to see who are watching. It says season 2 already in the works.
Wow, so maybe there's some creative writing minds busy coming up with a pitch.
His son Joe Hill praises HBO and Stephen King's The Outsider.
Nice.
Man,
I gotta say, for anybody who thinks that they are not successful, look at Stephen King and Joe Hill and realize that these two men they're older. And I'm not saying Stephen King hasn't had a storied career. Obviously, he's had a very long and storied career. But, it's almost a joke of Hollywood that every Stephen King movie is terrible. It's horrible. It's, it's going to be a funny Stephen King adaptation. Oh, my God, everybody's going to lie, whatever. And over the past couple of years, both of these guys, Lock and Key, Nosferatu, those are all Joe Hill. And then Stephen King's adaptations now that have come to the screen, they've all been amazing. So, if you ever lose hope and you feel like, oh my God, everything is always failing and blah, 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 whatever, there is hope out there. This stuff is just unbelievable. And I don't feel like it was just, on the face, that's what was going to happen. Something really big shifted, and wow, we have some excellent quality stuff coming out.
Oh, wait, okay, here's something else. Let me see. And I 100% agree with you. Okay, it looks like I'm not going to be able to show you guys that. But no, pretty cool. So they're saying The Outsiders season 2. Yeah, so they believe there will be a season 2. Well, man, I'm there. It'll be different because there's no book.
Right, and clearly the characters are going to have to change.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it says though the same crew is going to come up with the season 2 of it. So will it be? So that makes you wonder. Maybe they're going to really change the end to where,
Well, since we're in the spoiler territory, we don't know if El Cuco dies at the end of the book anyway. We don't know. It's left very open and very nebulous, so it's very possible that El Cuco did not die.
And he might live through dun dun dun.
Yeah. You just don't know. So
yeah. So we shall see. Okay, so let's go to you, Jen. How can people get you in social media and all that wonderful stuff?
You can find me on Twitter at followingbliss1, and you can find my websites at moviesmakethemeal.com and studiowhitewolf.com.
All right. And you can get me at Kinte F on Twitter. You can get me at Kinte Ferguson, Fergerson, on Instagram. And of course, the website is indyradio.org, indyradio.org. And of course, we will be back for the season 1 finale. And if you're able, let's do that like right after it airs. If you're able to do that, Jen.
Okay, sounds good.
So
I had a power glitch. Sorry.
I think we lost you, Jen.
I'm here.
But,
can you hear me?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, I had a power glitch.
Oh, no problem. So if you're able to do it, let's try to do it right after the episode ends, because I know I'm really excited and looking forward to talking about it.
Let's do it.
All right, you guys. You have a good one.